iHeartMedia.
Welcome. This is Sidebar. Sidebar, a frank discussion on life, the law, and liberty. Sponsored by the LaHood Norton Law Group. And now, your objection sustained. Your hosts, Karen Klaus and former Bexar County District Attorney, Nico LaHood.
1200 WOAI, this is Sidebar. Why don't y'all decide what we're going to talk about before we go on the air? 30 seconds before. This is Sidebar. Go to sidebartv.com. Get on social media. Please join us during the show and after the show when we continue having conversations about everything that's going on in our world. While you're at sidebartv.com, please. Do I ever say this? We appreciate every single one of you who comes to the show, participates, asks questions, but we would also love for you to become a contributor, a sponsor of the show. We love businesses to think about maybe becoming a monthly sponsor. Just go to sidebartv.com. You can also email me if you have any questions. You can find Karen Klaus at iHeartMedia.com. Very easy. And it's funny that we're talking about what are we talking about, because it's hard in 1 hour to get the 70,000 topics that happened this week. I'm sure everybody's happy that Jimmy Kimmel's back on the air. Check. Okay, and then this week, that shooting in Dallas, the violence continues against our ICE agents, and there was an announcement that I was just dying to talk to you about, Nico, when they said there was going to be a big announcement about autism, and they made the announcement that Tylenol could be to blame. And I don't know, for some reason I thought that Tylenol already had a disclaimer on the side that said, watch out if you're pregnant and taking Tylenol. I mean, it didn't seem new to me. And then if we could start out talking about what happened, was it just a week ago? The whole Charlie Kirk memorial, revival, whatever you thought it was. There were so many speakers. We're going to go over that again. If you have just, for the very first time, discovered Sidebar, every week you can come right here to hear the former Bexar County District Attorney, Nico LaHood, trial lawyer, managing partner of the LaHood Norton Law Group, and George Araujo, scholar, former chemist, pharmaceutical researcher, and director. So if we could, maybe we could start with the Charlie Kirk Memorial, because some people called it a revival. Other people talked about it being the time to get revenge on the other side. And I see both sides, because there was some anger, and I still have anger about what happened to Charlie Kirk, but the revival seemed real when it was happening.
Well, revival doesn't happen without repentance, right? So you have to have repentance as part of revival. Just having an excited gathering where everybody does praise and worship and yells and kumbayas each other, that's not revival. There has to be a true surrender or repentance to change and do life differently. And I'm not going to get into the biblical aspect of repentance, but just in general terms, it's being sorry enough or repentive enough to change your behavior, not just like acknowledging where you're at, but it's acknowledging and doing something different because you're saying, I'm going to do things differently. So, I mean, look, I think that we're so, Christian public displays of Christianity has been so filtered out of our society that this would just blew your socks off, which it was, no matter what, this was amazing. I mean, 100,000 people showed up plus. Was it 100 million views online at the time? And now it's probably, as Saulo said on Sidebar, we had a special episode, not Sidebar, R-rated. It's gone more from now at this point. I have a lot of feelings about it. I love public acknowledgments of Jesus Christ. I mean, I'm biased because I'm a Christ follower. I'm a Christian. I love the praise and worship. Look, I happened to watch all of it. I watched all 5 hours plus because my wife went out of town with her brother to support their other brother and sister in an Ironman. And so it was like a one-day trip turnaround. So I had the kids at the house, and I said, well, I'm just going to watch it on my phone and do stuff around the house. And so I actually listened to the worship. I listened to the speakers. It was a mixed bag. You had some early on. You had some people that I think tried too hard and was, rah, and trying to be the next Charlie. And I'm going to step into the shoes. And I thought they looked. Whatever. I didn't really care for some of the earlier ones. I loved Frank Turek. If you don't know who he is, he's a Christian apologist. He was that mystery man in the white hat that was giving the signals to the shooter, allegedly. People are so foolish because they jumped.
That's right.
They rushed to conclusions instead of pause. But he was there. He was a mentor to Charlie. Rob McCoy, Charlie's pastor, I thought did a good job. There was a profession in asking people to surrender to Christ, which is what Charlie would have wanted also. You had Marco Rubio, which I thought was a superstar. You know, I think about Marco anyway. But I mean, his at the end, I mean, his full-throated presentation of the gospel and even the second coming of Christ was amazing from a public official. Vance did a very good job. I thought he did a very good job. His raw, his honesty of saying, look, I've never talked about my faith so much and I need to more. I think one of the surprise hitters for me was Don Jr. I thought he did a much better job. I thought he was going to be an idiot, and he did, I thought, very well, especially for his personality is a little different and not my style. But I thought he did very well. Pete Heck says, he's an open Christian, so I was fine with it. Tulsi I thought, a good job, even though she's Hindu. I thought she honored Charlie's faith very well, and she did a good job. The question I had, and I'm getting up to Erica and Trump here in a second, but is why are public officials professing the gospel in a bolder, more clear way than not all, but a lot of churches? That's the question that I had.
Crazy.
I mean, we're blessed. I mean, Hillside does it right. I mean, CBC does it right. There's other churches does it right. I'm friends with David Cameron and other pastors. That's not an exhaustive list, but there's other pastors out there that do it right. But Adrian Compton came to my mind too. So there's other pastors that I can go on and on. I'm thinking of a lot of them right now. I don't want to leave anybody out, but sorry, I got to move on. All I'm saying is, but why are these public officials, doing this and churches aren't really doing this? Because there's a void in our society. When you're thinking about moral compasses, you normally look to the church to see where we're gauging our moral compass. And our we know this, our country is rooted in Judeo-Christian ideology, philosophy, ethos, whatever you want to say. And when you get up to Erica Kirk, talk about an expression or a reflection of a Christian principle, which is forgiveness. It was personal to me because my brother was murdered in my driveway. It was very public. It was, you got the chance to, I walked out to it. No one gave us a phone call. My parents walked out to it. My little brother walked out to it. And so, and 11 days later, I was nowhere near forgiveness. I wasn't a Christ follower back then. I wasn't a Christian. I was going to religious schools, but I wasn't a Christian. But she modeled forgiveness in tears, and that's what forgiveness is a choice. It's not a feeling. You never feel like forgiving someone, but it's commanded. It's not. The scripture doesn't say when you feel like it, when they repent. No, and Jesus modeled that on the cross, Matthew 26. He said, Father, forgive them. Doesn't mean there's not consequences. Doesn't mean you're a doormat. Doesn't mean we're pacifists. That's another sermon in itself. But she modeled forgiveness. I thought she did an outstanding job in her emotions and even how she ended everything. And then there was President Trump. And I say this as a Trump supporter.
Yeah, I know.
I say this as a tremendous Trump supporter. You know that. But I got to call balls and strikes. I would have, the first thing, walk out, just please go to the podium. Don't stand. You're not at a rally. Don't sit there and get attention. Like you're standing in the middle of the stage like you want people, like people were there for you. They weren't.
I hate to say this, but give him a break.
No,
because he's not a touchy-feely kind of guy.
No one gets a break.
If they would have switched Trump and Erica and had her ended, you would have never even said that.
No one gets a break. I don't get a break. You don't get a break, Karen. Trump doesn't get a break. No one gets a break. We got to have principles to stand by, or we're not the people that we claim to be. He doesn't get a break. I don't think he should be over-criticized because I'm gonna compliment him because I thought the rest of his week was very good. I had a real weird week with Trump this week. But don't just walk to the stage, walk to the podium and say, who decided to put me after Erica Kirk? What an amazing speech. Can we just acknowledge her once again? The crowd would have gone bananas.
Yeah.
And then I'm going to share some thoughts on, and then, I hate my enemies, and then tariffs, and then Biden. it turned into I was just so, and look, I don't know. There was some reporting that a lot of people left during his speech. A lot of people left. I don't know. I didn't get the numbers. I didn't take a roll call, so I don't know. And then after, he just kind of stayed on stage, just walk off the stage, So, hey, look, that it is what it is. That's what we get with President Trump. It's the same personality flaw, but also a benefit that allowed him to go through everything he went through with all the attacks from Biden and the DOJ and the lawfare and all the stuff he went through. No one would have gone through that. And it's probably that personality that allows him to go through that. So there's my be fair with Donald Trump. I'm a supporter of him. I just want better for him. I want better for us, and I want better for our advocacy as conservatives. And so that's why it frustrated me so much. So that's my overall. There you go.
Okay, George, you have 2 minutes.
Right, 2 minutes. Go ahead. Sorry.
Last time it was 15 seconds, so let me see what I can do. No, I can't disagree with your assessment on Trump, but I think that if if Trump would have gone back, and he did, he touched on it, but he didn't make it a central point of his comments, which is to focus on the man, Charlie Kirk. More importantly, what he did, but more importantly, why he did it. And I think that's what made a lot of the speeches effective. Not all of them, but certainly most of them were quite effective, and I think we're very positive in that everybody in the nation should watch them because it focused on why Charlie Kirk was animated. Why did he care politically? Why was he even doing what he was doing? And it got to the root of that, and that was his faith in Jesus Christ. And I thought that proposition was very boldly asserted and very eloquently asserted by a whole host of speakers. And it was to me, it was positively surreal, if I can put those two together, to watch members of the cabinet of the President of the United States talk from their heart, from their personal conviction about their own faith. And J.D. Vance made the comment, man, I haven't talked this much about my faith in forever. I mean, I've spoken more in the last 2 weeks about my faith than I ever have. And he credited Charlie's boldness and Charlie's example. There's a tragedy to that it took this. Yeah. And I think for me, that's why it was surreal, that it took a murder of a young man, a father and a husband, and a person who cared deeply about this country to do that. What does that say? What does that say?
It is pretty pathetic. It really is. We have so much to talk about. We really hope that you stick with us this entire show. But please get on social media right now because we would love for you to stick with us after the show. This is Sidebar, and we'll be right back.
With reputations as respected high-level prosecutors in Bexar County, the attorneys of LaHood Norton Law Group bring invaluable practical knowledge from the other side of the aisle, using over 70 years of combined experience to strategically advocate clients' rights and pursue the best possible outcome.
I'm Nico LaHood with LaHood Norton Law Group. Have you been arrested or accused of a crime? The LaHood Norton Law Group has the knowledge to defend you regardless of how small or large your case. In Bexar County, anywhere in the state, or even nationwide, we have the knowledge to defend you in federal or state court, no matter how small or large your case. We are trial lawyers with proven success.
Using their 70 years of combined experience to strategically advocate for their clients' rights and pursue the best possible outcome. The LaHood Norton Law Group. For a free consultation, call today, 210-797-7700. 210-797-7700. LaHoodNorton.com.
This is Nico LaHood. If you or a loved one has been arrested or accused of a crime, we can help.
LaHoodNorton.com.
1200 WOAI. This is Sidebar. Please check out sidebartv.com and consider becoming a contributor to the show. It would really help things to continue the way that we're moving and having these conversations that are so desperately needed. I haven't talked to you guys about what we're talking about now.
Well,
you want to wrap it up?
Just to give RFK Jr. Credit, because I love Bobby. I think he is truly one of the most sincere and authentic politicians out there, and also very capable and feels deeply. I mean, he's deeply convicted about what he believes. He's not a pretender. Now, you may not like what he says or how he says it, whatever, but he is a truly sincere individual, cares deeply about what he does. And when he says he cares deeply about people and cares deeply about HHS and the mission that he's been charged with, I mean, you got to believe the man, it seems to me. But I loved what he had to say. And here's what he had to say. I mean, he said a lot, but I'm going to pick out what I thought was the most important part. Quote, Charlie's overarching passion was his Christianity and his devotion to his God. He believed what St. Francis taught us almost 1,000 years ago, that we should strive to live our lives in perfect imitation of Christ. That we should turn every day and every moment and every interaction into a prayer. And Charlie understood the great paradox that it's only by surrender to God that God's power can flow into our lives and make us effective human beings. So he went to the foundation of what animated Charlie Kirk. And so people wonder why he was politically involved, why he was politically active, why he founded Turning Point USA, why he had the priorities that he had every day, why he did what he did. You got to go to the foundation. Why does the house look at it the way that it does? It has a lot to do with the foundation that it stands on. And so I think this was important, and I think RFK captured it. Trump touched on it. He didn't make it a central point of his speech, and I think he should have. And I think in that regard, he fell down. But I think overall, you got to give the speakers credit for coming back to Charlie and what animated him. And I think his parents overall can be very proud that they did him a due honor.
So, RFK, the whole Tylenol.
Speaking of transitioning.
Tylenol thing. I don't know why I was so disappointed in that huge announcement. I mean, do y'all have any thoughts on that?
I'll tell you this. I mean, just leaving off on Trump's speech. I mean,
yes, please.
We all knew what he was talking about when he said big announcement. I did. I mean, I figured. And you're talking to a guy who has a son on the spectrum of autism, who absolutely believes and knows my wife and our son is vaccine injured. And I've been very open about that. And I still didn't even want to hear about that during Charlie's memorial. It wasn't the right time, and he kept going on it. But okay, that was the last one. But you know, it is what it is. I mean, like I say, you take it what it is. But now back to this. Now I was very proud of Trump. I mean, he was tenacious during this. I mean, and he just wouldn't leave Tylenol alone. I mean, to your point earlier, I mean, he was like, Tylenol, don't take Tylenol. I was like, okay, I got it. Yeah, I mean, he was just, it's almost like he was just waiting for some justification to say what he's been thinking all this time. Because, I mean, it was weird during his campaign. He was very skeptical of vaccines. And then he had a talk with Bill Gates. And all of a sudden, I was like, oh, man, this dude is going to fold like everybody else. Yeah. And after a talk with Bill Gates, that idiot. I mean, you know, Bill Gates is a disgusting person to me. And then he kind of changes his tune, and then the whole Operation Warp Speed. I was like, all right, whatever. He just fell for it like everybody else, I guess, whatever. And then like this floodgate of he just wouldn't let up. Yeah. I mean, look, I thought Tylenol, to your point earlier, has always said, don't take this. Don't take our stuff while you're pregnant. FYI, this is Tylenol. All right. Now, I mean, George is our,
yes,
he's our expert. He'll talk about it from a chemist and from a scientific standpoint. I'm just glad that the discussion's being had, because if you brought up vaccines or any medical intervention, you were looked at as a kook. When I was DA, I brought it up. I mean, you know, I was very open about it. People attacked me for it. How could you be DA? Because I ask questions. I'm just like people should be asking questions. Just like I'm sure on the after show, people have been texting me asking about Charlie Kirk's, investigation and how that's going, and all the different theories of who's the shooter, lone shooter, patsy, side shooter, lapel shooter, lapel thing, Israel, all the other crap. Right. I mean, it's all out there, and there's ways to figure this out, and there'll be some telltale signs on whether we're having a good investigation or not between the federal and state, and the state should be taking the lead, by the way. So we'll get to that in a second, but Bobby's been fighting this fight for a long time, and so there's actually some research behind this, and I think the advocacy is we need more research, and we have to have this discussion, because here's one thing I took away from Trump's press conference, and I'm glad he's saying it over and over again, and this is something that I've been saying, my wife and I. So it was really surreal for me and my wife listening to this, because we've been in this fight for years, advocating for Michael, advocating for people to educate themselves, advocating for true informed consent. And what I took away is that Trump and Bobby and the doctors and his staff, they want informed consent. Informed means you're informed about all the possibilities, and then you get to make an informed decision. You get all the options, and then you make the decision what's best for you. And so that was the takeaway for me. And so I'm glad that we're having this discussion. I'm glad that information is getting out there, and then people can make their own decisions from there.
Yeah. I mean, it was really unremarkable. All they did was simply state something, to your points, that has been out there for a long time. And really some of the most, I'm not going to say damning, just direct statements made on the concerns between taking acetaminophen or paracetamol, depending on which version you see in the literature, while you're pregnant, comes from Tylenol itself. And I think you were alluding to this point, Karen, when you started this conversation. So this is unremarkable. What they are saying, though, is that the evidence is mounting, that it's more than just sort of a shrugged, hey, be careful, hey, talk to your doctor kind of thing. It's more than that. And so Marty McCary, one of the HHS officials that I think is excellent and has spoken openly in the aftermath of the announcement, he's brought some clarity to it, some scientific clarity. He made the statement that I thought was remarkable to me. He says about 4 weeks ago that there was a significant study that was released by Harvard School of Health. In fact, one of the co-authors is the chair of the Harvard School of Health, co-led between Harvard and Mount Sinai. And the discovery or the conclusion of the study, again, it was just sort of another nail in the coffin, but this has been going on for years, or tons of studies. There aren't enough, we need more, but there are tons of studies pointing in a particular direction. And the conclusion was that there's clearly a causal connection. That's the word. Not a link, not a slight correlation.
Yeah.
And I have no problems with strong correlations. I mean, if you know anything about correlation coefficients in basic statistics, that matters. As a correlation coefficient approximates 1, it's more than a smoking gun, right? So correlation coefficients are absolutely essential in our analysis of causation. Essential. Completely inextricable from the analysis. You can't have one without the other. So he said there's a causative connection, a causal connection between prenatal acetaminophen and neurodegenerative disease like ADHD, and there's a spectrum, and autism spectrum disorder.
ADS.
And that's been mounting more and more clearly. And so this is one of several studies that have come out to stress serious caution. They didn't tell people to stop taking Tylenol. Trump went hot and heavy. I think Trump is interesting to me in this because he reflects for me the average American who is actually stopping to look and evaluate what an insert or a label actually says about the side effects of drugs. To me, that was a kind of an awakening moment for him, and it kind of freaked him out. And the reality is, Americans are doped up today, way more than they should be, particularly young people, and they're taking stuff like it's candy without stopping to really think about the short-term and long-term effects, not the least of which
Not to mention,
are a whole colonnade of autoimmune diseases that we ought to be taking
SSRI
seriously.
drugs, selective serotonin reuptake inhibitors. I mean, kids are just inundated with those, and then there's side effects to those. What I thought was interesting about the Tylenol thing, and it shows the divide and the true animus of people on each side of this tribalistic mindset we have. You had women pregnant women just to spite Trump for whatever reason. They're just downing these Tylenol pills as they're pregnant. So even if, let's say there is the studies that George is referencing and that they can be verified and there's more studies done and there is damage that can be done. I mean, how are they getting Trump back by taking Tylenol while they're pregnant? I mean, to me, it's just, but that just shows it is deranged. There is a derangement in that. That's not normal. I mean, and look, whether people like it or not, this touch back on the memorial. If you see the response from quote unquote the right, more conservative leaning people and left leaning people and progressives, and you see the destruction and riots, I mean, look, you can't ignore that. I mean, you're really not being an honest actor if we're going to have this discussion. If you can't see the reaction from the left of burning and breaking things and hurting people versus vigils and a memorial and prayer, and then the leader of this movement, now Erica Kirk, saying forgive. I mean, that is a stark difference. So there's really something deeper going on here, and it really tells you why more of that memorial mindset and understanding there's something transcendent outside of time, space, and matter that we all have to answer to. And let's try to understand better so we can learn how to live with our neighbor, not punch our neighbor.
Amen. Look, I would just say, as somebody who's worked with clinical data, I can tell you that if Tylenol was going before the FDA today, rather than when it went before the FDA some 7 decades ago, I can tell you right now it's highly likely that there will be a black box warning on it.
Wow.
To alert to potentially fatal complications. Because the reality is that the acceptable dose, I mean, guys, look this up. Look up a Tylenol extra strength pain reliever, and you'll see that 1 capsule is about 500 milligrams. 2 capsule, obviously, 1,000 milligrams. See how I did that? Higher math. Well, if you can take 2 of those capsules once every 6 hours, you're going to be at a 3,000 milligram, and that's the max that you can take, right? Now, the problem with that dose that's considered the maximally safe dose is that it's dangerously close to what would be considered toxic.
Ugh.
Now, here's the problem. Most people who experience cold or pains, aches and pains, they take that, but they also take other cold medicines in conjunction, which also have acetaminophen. So you are now in the potential for a fatal overdose. This is just reality. And so what's happening here, and this is where the vaccine thing comes in, because what's happening is you've got that in combination then. This is called simply it's a simple incompatibility. And what we're seeing is there's a correlation between, as you would say, Nico, the synergistic effects, which are not necessarily positive. And so this is what we're seeing analytically. This is what we're seeing clinically. And it bears further investigation. Tylenol by itself has there's serious concerns here. There have been plenty of papers that have been written. I know one out of University of I think it's University of San Diego School of Health, and I'll confirm that in a few minutes, that literally identifies acetaminophen as the most dangerous over-the-counter drug out there. Yeah. And that's the words that they use, dangerous. And so this isn't, I just want to simply state, this isn't remarkable. It really isn't. And for people to react the way that they did. So it seems to me now, Nico, and I'll shut up because I know you want to say something.
No, that's okay.
It seems to me now we're at a place in the nation where what you determine to be safe to go in your body or not safe comes down to what Trump says. So if Trump says he doesn't like Tylenol, you're going to make a video drinking it like it's candy. Yes, that's right. Bringing toxicity into your body to make a point that what? This is lunacy. The same thing happened during COVID, if you remember. Remember Operation Warp Speed, which I was no fan of, and neither are you. At that time, Kamala Harris said she would never take the vaccine simply because Trump was pushing it. The second Trump lost the election, no, I don't want to get into that it was stolen, but the second Trump lost the election, you get into the Biden-Harris administration, and now it's the best thing next to sliced bread, and everybody's safe, including pregnant mothers. Well, that's literally insane.
That's such a good point, and I know we're wrapping up for the break, but let's just leave it on this. Vaccines never was a political side issue. It was always just an issue. I mean, when I spoke out against it, I got attacked from the Democrats and Republicans. But now, all of a sudden, it's become political. Bobby wasn't with conservatives back then. Bobby's been on this path for years and years and years advocating for this, and he was a quote-unquote Democrat, but he's an environmentalist and all this stuff, and he's been talking about neurotoxins and how it's affecting babies and all this other thing, and he's been on this vaccine issue for years, and I've been with him on part of it. And so, but now all of a sudden, because of our tribalistic mindset, now it's political. Now, if you're for medical freedom, you're on the right, and now if you're not for it, then you're on the left, and it was never like that before.
Add it to the list of things that we all are going to talk about every time. Republican, Democrat. Okay, we are going to take a break. Stick with us. We'll be right back after this, and this is Sidebar.
San Antonio's news, weather, traffic, plus breaking news 24/7. This is News Radio 1200 WOAI from the GiveMeTheVin.com Sell Us Your Cars studio.
I'm Joe Morano on News Radio 1200 WOAI. More protests happening in Chicago surrounding ICE agents. We'll have the details coming up next.
The WOAI Traffic Center.
We have some ongoing road construction downtown.
Our weather center. More protests against ICE are happening in Chicago. Fox 32 Chicago's Casey Cronus has the details from outside an ICE facility in Broadview, Illinois.
Demonstrators gathered for the fourth Friday in a row to denounce the ICE presence in the city and suburbs. Much of Friday evening remained relatively calm outside the Broadview facility, but that wasn't the case earlier in the day. 2 people were arrested during the commotion. In the last week, a total of 16 demonstrators have been taken into custody. Now, Broadview Mayor Katrina Thompson has sent a letter to the DHS field office director, writing that the relentless deployment of tear gas, pepper spray, mace, and rubber bullets is not only harming area residents, but also Broadview police officers and firefighters.
Deportation efforts have ramped up in the city after President Trump threatened to send in National Guard troops to crack down on crime happening there. Sinclair and Nexstar Broadcasting have started airing Jimmy Kimmel Live again. His show was preempted by the 2 broadcast groups following Kimmel's return from suspension on Tuesday. He was suspended last week following comments he made related to the death of Charlie Kirk. In his return monologue this week, Kimmel said it was never his intention to make light of Kirk's murder. News on demand at WOAI.com. Our next update at the top of the hour, breaking information as it happens. I'm Joe Morano on San Antonio's news, weather, and traffic station, News Radio 1200 WOAI.
This report is sponsored by the Harlem Globetrotters. This isn't just a game. It's a once-in-a-generation event, the Harlem Globetrotters 100-year tour. Come be a part of a legacy that never stops. Be there when history is made. The Harlem Globetrotters 100-year tour. Get your tickets today at harlemglobetrotters.com.
1200 WOAI. This is Sidebar. Go to sidebartv.com right now because at the top of the hour, we will continue the conversation on the after show on social media. And this is a dumb question I have to ask you guys because I unfortunately, I wouldn't say I'm addicted to acetaminophen, but I take it. I would say every week I at least have a couple of them. What happens?
That explains everything.
It does. Thank you.
What happens when you have a headache? I mean, I drink a lot of water. What do you do? Like, are you telling people don't take Tylenol anymore?
Of all, we're not giving medical advice on this show, Nico. I just want to be clear about that. All we're simply is there's the political and there's the clinical. And what was announced during that press conference was unremarkable. It's been out there forever. Okay, and what we learned again, unfortunately, is that something isn't false just because Trump said it was true. Okay, that's where we are as a nation here. It's craziness. So we're providing commentary on that issue, and then to say that there are legitimate clinical concerns, and Trump has some great clinical people around him now. Finally, from the CDC to the FDA, literally to the head of HHS, people who are being thoughtful and are analyzing the literature as it should. We are not saying that under no circumstances should anybody take acetaminophen. That is not what we're saying. We're just simply saying that per the literature, which is vast. I mean, it's not exhaustive, but it's vast, that there is a serious concern, legitimate concern about toxicity where acetaminophen is concerned, and that people ought to consider that, period. And that doesn't mean you should never take it under any circumstances. Just be cautious. Do have a conversation with your doctor. And finally, Nico, I would say, informed consent might be back in mode, I hope.
I hope so.
Because that's really what this is about. Doctors have been acting as prescriptionists for too long. Sit and talk with your patients. Talk to them, truly, about the pros and the cons of the drug. Take your time to do that. Share the insert.
The insert
answer
is critical.
questions.
No one even know. A lot of people don't even know about
I
inserts.
agree.
Just ask about
I
the
agree.
insert. Talk about it. Then look at aluminum and formaldehyde and the Marisol and all the other stuff.
With vaccines, adjuvants. And
Adjuvants in the vaccines. Sorry, yes, I was referencing vaccines now. But ask questions about everything. I mean, you sometimes you need to push back on doctors. I mean, many times, and I say this with respect, but if Trump was really smart, what he would say before the midterm elections is just say, I'm voting Democrat. See what happens. All the Democrats will vote Republican. That's what he should do.
That is a good strategy. That is funny. You said you were having a week where you loved Trump. You thought, my God, what is this guy doing? And he has been in the news on so many topics this week. One, why is it that this domestic terrorism qualification for people that go against ICE is a big deal? Why is there outcry for that? I don't understand.
In what sense? What do you mean?
That Trump says, okay, we are now calling anybody that is that's on the left, causing problems now is categorized as a domestic terrorist.
Well, we got to be careful with words. I mean, first of all, I get that. I'm not disagreeing with him on that. I mean, but remember, for a long time, parents that went to school boards and somebody pushed back, like Mark or somebody, Antoine or whatever, pushed back last time. And there was a lot of proof, and George looked it up. And I don't know if I forgot to share it or not. I think I shared it with him on a post. I mean, the left was talking about parents at school boards as domestic terrorists. I mean, so now, I mean, if everybody's a domestic terrorist, then no one's a domestic terrorist. If everybody's a Nazi, then no one's a Nazi. If everybody's racist, then no one's racist. I mean, so you have to be very careful with words. And we throw words around, hate, love, whatever, good, bad, evil. And we don't even understand what the definition, it's all about the definitions to me. But if you have a group of people advocating violence against any law enforcement group, I mean, you've lost your mind. We have a process here in the United States. And even though it's imperfect, it's the best out there. And if you don't like it, go to a country where you think it's better. I mean, or work through the system to change it appropriately. But I don't know what you're going to change. I mean, ICE is just they're enforcing laws. This is something Trump said he was going to do. Is it being done imperfectly? Yes. Do I know of people that were born here but have ties to other countries that have been picked up by ICE? I do. I mean, that's just a fact. We don't deny that. People that support what Trump is doing, and a lot of people do, don't say there's not glitches in this process, because then you lose credibility. Just say it's imperfect, but of course it's going to be imperfect, because you're trying to sweep out a bunch of people that were here illegally, and you're going to make some bad choices, and there should be a way to rectify it quickly, expeditiously, appropriately, and there should be the checks and balance in the system. But this is not the first attack on an ICE center ever. This is just the first time someone had passed away, unfortunately. And then right away, because there was a detainee that was attacked, that unfortunately passed away, and we should all say unfortunate. No one should be glad that a detainee was killed.
Yeah.
But because it was a detainee, right away the left says, well, must have been some Trump supporter, and it was someone that was trying to shoot the detainees, and that's not the case. This the investigation is ongoing, but this person, of course, like a coward, killed himself. And so, but he was going after the ICE agents apparently, and because there's a lot of evidence that he was not for ICE and he was attacking ICE and all this other stuff. So this is not the way to do it. I don't understand, because then where does it end? Then when all these dignitaries have security, is it okay to attack the security? Is it okay to go after politicians now? Because it already seems like it's okay when it sometimes, or public officials or figures. When you can't have a discussion, then it goes to violence. And this is the problem. And this is why more discussion is needed. This is why less censorship is needed. And that's why I'm not for Jimmy Kimmel being taken off the air. If he's going to get fired because he's a crappy employee, that's fine. But I don't want the government. I don't want Trump's government. I don't want anyone's government coming in and trying to influence people to get people off the air. And let me tell you this. So before the left cheers too much, Biden did that with Google and Biden did that with Facebook. And we saw that. And now that's uncontroverted. That's come out. And both organizations have admitted that. So that's a shot to not a shot, sorry. That's mud on Biden's face and that's mud on Trump's face if he's trying to do the same thing. I don't want the government telling anyone to do crap other than behave. That's it. And enforce laws.
If you listen to the Department of Homeland Security and you're listening to what they're saying, they've been warning about this for a while now. It's going up by 200%, 300%, 500%. The number of attacks, 600%, 800%. Now it's 1,000%. This is a serious problem. And you have leaders in Washington that are using, again, Nazi and Gestapo language every time they reference ICE. From the House Minority Leader, Hakeem Jeffries, who was saying, if you listen to him, he's literally talking like he's going to be in power soon. He's acting like the midterms are already in the bag. And a little warning to Hakeem Jeffries, that's unlikely to happen. If it was today, it's unlikely to happen. Don't get too excited, okay? But what he's saying is that they're literally going to investigate this. They're going to investigate ICE agents. This isn't the 1930s. He's alluding to, obviously, Germany in the 1930s and analogizing them to the Gestapo. Representatives Dan Goldman from New York said the same thing, accused them of being, Gestapo. And Tim Walz, of course, the great Tim Walz from Minnesota, said the same thing. Gavin Newsom, same way. Over and over and over again, references to these guys as Nazi thugs. Now, what Nazi thug is worth preserving? Does that sound like a person you want to give due process to, Nico? A Nazi thug? What do you think is going to happen? This is where we're at right now. And there's been a stream of left-wing violence. So ICE it's just one of them. This has been happening all week. There are reports of violent outbursts by individuals from Antifa. There was one in the Massachusetts Vigil on Saturday. On Sunday, there was one in Florida. There was a guy at a New Hampshire country club that literally shot someone dead right after he shouted "Free Palestine." In case you know anything about Free Palestine, it's not exactly something you say when you're trying to, break the ice and say sweet neighborly things. So, the ABC 10 shooting this week. Was it in San Francisco? Somebody check me out on that. I think it was San Francisco. There were protests, angry about the Jimmy Kimmel firing, and then somebody went in there and started shooting the ABC 10 building. This has been going on all week, and it's coming. Please, again, where's the analogy? Where's the other side? I just completely reject this both sideism stuff. It doesn't exist. Are there violent people on the right? Whatever that really means when these guys are talking about it. Sure there are. There's evil everywhere. But this is decidedly coming from the left. This is an organized,
Then what's
concentrated,
what's that study or whatever it is when
left-wing
people
violent
post?
movement. Go ahead. Sorry.
No, I'm asking you. I'm going to be the interviewer real quick. What's that study they're saying that the studies show that the violence comes from the right? Is that
Elon
just BS?
Omar is trafficking in nothing but propaganda. It is complete BS. There are two studies. One from the Anti-Defamation League, which started out well, but isn't a great organization right now. They're decidedly left-wing in their analyses. The problem is this. The examples that they use are not political violence examples. They're saying that political violence is aggregated from the right, overwhelmingly so. Elon Omar has been pushing this. There's two studies, one from the Anti-Defamation League and the other one from The Economist. And in both cases, the sample size is entirely corrupted. They're literally finding individuals, and I mean it, just random individuals who have the slightest and tangential affiliation with anyone on the right. And who would that be? They literally find several degrees of freedom from between that individual and, let's say, the Aryan neighborhood, all 9 people in the Aryan neighborhood, and neo-Nazis and white supremacist organizations. There's no, like in the end, let's use Charlie Kirk's murder. He was shot for his political positions,
right,
which we have just said are rooted in Judeo-Christianity, another hated set of views by the left. So that is a political takedown. Michelle Hortman, who's a Democrat, a political takedown for her views.
But that wasn't by someone on the right, though, right?
It was on the left.
Yeah,
the point is that is a political takeout, right, or a political act of violence for that political figure or someone who's holding particular political views. Random acts of violence between people that you tangentially associate with the right isn't the same thing.
Right.
And so these have been quoted as authoritative studies when they're in fact complete BS.
Okay, we are going to take a break because I have some questions about that too. But we want you to go to sidebartv.com to find your place on social media because we continue at the top of the hour. We'll be right back with more on Sidebar.
With reputations as respected high-level prosecutors in Bexar County, the attorneys of LaHood Norton Law Group bring invaluable practical knowledge from the other side of the aisle, using over 70 years of combined experience to strategically advocate clients' rights and pursue the best possible outcome.
I'm Nico LaHood with LaHood Norton Law Group. Have you been arrested or accused of a crime? The LaHood Norton Law Group has the knowledge to defend you regardless of how small or large your case. In Bexar County, anywhere in the state, or even nationwide, we have the knowledge to defend you in federal or state court, no matter how small or large your case. We are trial lawyers with proven success.
Using their 70 years of combined experience to strategically advocate for their clients' rights and pursue the best possible outcome. The LaHood Norton Law Group. For a free consultation, call today, 210-797-7700. 210-797-7700. LaHoodNorton.com.
This is Nico LaHood. If you or a loved one has been arrested or accused of a crime, we can help.
LaHoodNorton.com.
If you haven't joined us after the show online, you're really missing out. You're seriously missing out because we get to go in depth on certain topics. Maybe, what do you think? Can we talk about the Charlie Kirk murder investigation after the show?
We can. I mean, I'm getting a lot of questions on it. And there's not any answers right now. There's no definitive answers, but there's a lot of curiosity where I would, if I was leading the investigation, because we'll talk about it on the after show. The DA's office, the local DA's office should be leading that investigation because they're the ones going to be prosecuting it. So I'm still looking for the federal tie there, the federal investigation. If the FBI's there, they're there just to assist the state authorities. And so it should be a state prosecution and a state investigation. But we can talk about that. We can talk about the Comey indictment, unless you want to talk about that now.
Well, I kind of want to talk about that now because I'm not saying every single, so many of the moves that Trump makes are being called revenge. Whether it comes to Comey or, his investigation into Letitia James or any of these moves, it's because he wants to get revenge on somebody. But is there the possibility that maybe they did something wrong and he's just trying to right it? Or why is it so much revenge-y?
Well, because revenge-y, I don't know if that's a word.
It isn't.
But look, this is a very short federal indictment. You got to look at this. And so I don't know. We'll see what happens. I guess if I'm looking at this objectively, and I got to, be honest here, It's a little weird that the U.S. attorney was fired previously, and then they brought in his personal attorney, who has never prosecuted a case before, and apparently has never presented to a grand jury before. That's something that's notable. Let's put it that way. That's notable. You don't fire one and bring in someone that has no experience. There's a claim that other seasoned prosecutors didn't want to be involved in this, and that's why they had to bring her involved. It's a very short federal indictment, and it's kind of difficult to figure out what incident they're talking about. They're claiming he lied to Congress, okay? We'll talk about perjury and what that means. And then they released classified information through a guy named Andrew McCabe, right? Whether it was directed, whether it was not directed, whether it was authorized, whether it was this, and that's going to be an interesting, there's a lot to defend there, to be honest with you, okay? So when you have state indictments, there's a doctrine called the doctrine of surplusage, right? And so on state indictments, surplus means not too much. You don't sit there and go on and on and on. You basically say on or about a certain date, somebody committed an offense, and then you have just enough manner and means, they say, to describe what that offense is, so you can properly prepare to defend it. When it comes to federal indictments, they're like narratives. If you look at a federal indictment, they tell a story, and there's been a lot of federal indictments released, and you can just look at those. It's almost like doing an opening statement, very detailed, very narrative in nature, and this one is not. So it's just that just doesn't mean that's the end of the world. I'm just saying that's the difference between a state and federal indictment. This doesn't have that. They're claiming perjury, and they're claiming releasing of classified information. It's going to be, I think, it appears at this stage, and I'm waiting to see more. It seems like it's going to come down to a he said, whether he was authorized, unless there's some text message, unless there's some verified email, unless there's something more that says that he authorized or told them to release that information. Let's see. Now, perjury is, the definition, classic definition, intentionally making a material false statement under oath, and it's connected to an official proceeding. Okay, so now what's material? And then you look at intentionality. You cannot prosecute someone for unintentionally making a false statement, and that wasn't their intent. But what is a material false statement? It's something that matters. The example I like to give people is if I'm testifying about an incident that involved a car, like a vehicular assault or vehicular manslaughter type deal, and then I lie about the color of the car versus lying about who was driving the car, that's the difference. One's material and one's not material. Because who's driving the car has mattered because the matter was used in the vehicular manslaughter and assault. So that's kind of so now what's material? Was it intentional? What did he know and not know? I don't know. We'll see what the evidence they have. I'm not a fan of Comey's. I think he's an opportunistic, arrogant stick with a P. But I still got to see. I think there's a lot to defend here at this point from what I've seen so far.
I don't want to say that there's ignorance everywhere in this world or in America, but sometimes people don't know what indicted means, and so they automatically go, he's going to go to jail. He was indicted.
Yeah. No, you can indict a ham sandwich. Literally. You go into a grand jury. There's no defense counsel there. You present the evidence you want to present. You don't have to present all of it. At least in state court for sure, it's just easy. An indictment just means a formal charge. That's all it means. It just so you can lay out exactly what someone did, how they did it. Generally, state and federal, like I said, is different. But that's it. Someone being indicted, it doesn't mean that there was deliberation. There wasn't. Funny enough, though, I heard there should have been 3 counts, and there are only 2 counts. And actually, the federal grand jury, which is very rare, denied one of the counts. So it's a 2-count indictment versus the original. I think they presented on a 3-count. Someone can correct me on that.
But isn't it, he got indicted. Maybe that's all they wanted. Maybe a real estate lawyer is taking on the case because they don't really, if it happens, it happens. If they don't, find anything.
Here's the problem. I think his role in Russiagate can't be overstated. I agree. But the question is, does that rise to, criminal conduct? And that's going to get really interesting. Just to recap, make sure I understand. There's really 2 counts here.
That's what I understand.
The first one is making misleading statements to Congress, and then the second one is actually obstructing Congress. And they're tied together because when you lie to Congress, you can obstruct a congressional investigation. There's a multi-year range here. This started in 2017 with congressional testimony, and then Ted Cruz in 2020 queried him about his 2017 testimony, and Comey doubled down on it, basically saying that he had nothing to do with the leak and didn't know anything about it. The problem is that conflicts. You brought up Andrew McCabe, who was his deputy director, who under testimony, under oath, said that Comey did know about that. And so,
but what proof does he have that Comey did know?
Well, I think that's material to the investigation. One can, maybe assume, even presume at this point. I don't know what was presented. What is presented to the grand jury? I know it's one-sided, but what evidence would something like that be presented to the grand jury at that time, or would they just say, take our word for it? I can't.
Take our word from the state side for sure. You could say it could be take our word, because there's no judge. It's not like there's a judge and you're what they call walking and talking, proving up evidence in court. And if you don't have the predicate for an evidence, then it's kept out before the grand jury. No, that's what happens in a court of law. You have a judge, you have rules of evidence, federal and state. They're similar, but they're different at times. You walk and talk evidence in. You have predicate information. You have to have a predicate witness with personal knowledge. Then you have hearsay objections. You have all kinds of personal knowledge and presumption and relevancy and irrelevancy objections. And then a judge is the ultimate arbiter, and the referee that says this evidence should or shouldn't go before a jury, a pettit jury. In grand jury, there's no judge. There's no arbiter that way. And
well, demystify that a little bit for me. How many people in a grand jury typically
12.
is? Okay, always 12. Okay.
Yes, state court for sure, 12,
good.
yes. Yeah. And it doesn't have to be unanimous.
Okay.
It just has, just has to have a quorum, and you have to have it doesn't have to be 12 people saying yes. So when people say, oh, it got indicted or didn't get indicted, it's not a unanimous decision.
I want to, because everybody's skeptical. I mean, the partisan fault lines are, inarguable today in the country. So when we say grand jury, I don't want people to think that somebody went and got 3 conservatives that left Trump, and that was the grand jury. I'd like to know the process by which, how does that typically get assembled?
It's usually through your driver's license. It's random.
And you have to have the time.
You don't have voir dire. It's not like you have voir dire, jury selection. Like, so we start a trial in next month. And so you're going to have a veneer panel come in. If it's a big trial, they'll bring in 200, 120. I think we're bringing in for this one. You need 12 people in that jury. You might have an alternate or 2. You have 10 peremptory strikes. You have as many strikes the judge allows for cause. And then you have this really jury deselection. And then you end up with 12. It's not like that with a grand jury. It's random. You get in there. It's usually, I'm almost positive it's through your driver's license. And then,
that would be a good way to do it randomly.
There's no jury selection. Yeah, you don't present a voir dire, then you don't do strikes, and you just boom, a group of people, and you present evidence, and the rules of evidence don't apply. There's no objections. There's no cross-examination. So you can indict.
So you see, ultimately this matters because, and we talked about it a couple of months ago, because of that intelligence community assessment, that ICA, Hillary Clinton loses the election, Obama brings his intelligence chiefs together, Comey's part of that meeting. That's a matter of record. He's part of that meeting. He asks for an intelligent community assessment, and that ICA report identified, quote unquote, Russian activities and intentions in recent U.S. elections that basically tied Trump to Russia. In other words, they said Russia really wanted Trump to win. That became the narrative. And even though the NSA had said, actually, that hasn't been corroborated at all, they dismissed the NSA. And what they said, they kept only the incriminating evidence for Trump. Then Comey goes out there and becomes a bit of a mouthpiece on behalf of the FBI, where he said there's high confidence in that judgment, and so forth. And so that's why there seems to be kind of a smoking gun here. Is that criminal? I don't know. There's a lot of issues here, and I suspect the investigation is probably going to go into that direction. I think it's about time we have some sunlight on this whole thing.
So furthering a lie, which is or something that was made up, and that was this entire thing, furthering that misinformation. Isn't that something that you can be charged for? Isn't that considered lying?
Well, Nico.
So they made up this whole Russia collusion thing.
It started with the Clinton narrative.
Yes, then they furthered it, and everybody knew that it was made up. Everybody in this group, Comey, Obama, the Clinton, they all knew
we don't know that for sure. You don't know that for sure.
I thought that there was emails proving it.
The 2020 House pre-select committee debunked that claim. That's the point.
It was made up.
Because here's my... Go ahead, if there's evidence that they all knew, then that's fine. I'm just saying... If somebody's pushing a false narrative, but they don't know it's a false, I'm just being objective. I'm not talking about Comey. That's where the intentionality comes in the connection.
Let me build on what you just said there for a moment. Let me see if it passes the smell test a la the hood. And that's a high bar. So let me see if I can give this a shot. So we talked this a couple months ago because I don't think this is going to go away for a while. But so I'm trying to get the name right. It's a 2020 House Permanent Select Committee on Intelligence.
Okay.
They had a report that came out of that, and they debunked this central claim that came out of this ICA.
Right.
Right. So they debunked that, and they said, and they went back to this NSA report, and they said, you guys had evidence to the contrary from the NSA. You didn't engage with it. You simply ignored it. And you picked highly skeptical, highly questionable evidence from the Steele dossier. And you picked only that. And so the conclusion is that the ICA, the purpose of the ICA, I should say, became kind of nefariously evident that it was to give validity to the Clinton manufactured narrative that Trump colluded with Moscow to steal the election. That's what that 2020 report said, that claim was debunked, and that you had Comey and Clapper and Brennan.
When was it debunked? At what point?
In 2020.
Okay, go ahead.
That's correct. And so now that has been recently, this report was classified, Nico. That has been recently declassified. And so the current Department of Justice is using that declassification as part of some of their evidence here. So let's see where it goes. So there seems to be some evidence. I don't know how compelling it is. It does appear to be interesting and worth following that there was some deliberate effort to obscure evidence.
Look, as we wrap up, for sure,
malign Trump.
Comey has made his heels in the sand, saying I didn't make a false statement. So I mean, let's see where the evidence leads us. I mean, I don't like the dude, but I'm going to look at this objectively, and we just don't have enough. We definitely don't have enough in that indictment of where they're going to go with it, and that's why I'm really curious to see what undergirds that. Look, guys, we're going to continue this conversation about Comey, about the UN, about San Antonio being the most unsafe city in Texas, and then also about Charlie Kirk's investigation, Charlie Kirk's murder investigation. Thank you for joining us. Have a very blessed weekend, and please join us on the after show. God bless you. Bye-bye.
The preceding show was paid for by the...
Okay, go back, George. Go back to explaining about this.
So the report that I was talking about that came out of that committee from Congress and the House committee from Congress in 2020, the report stated that it contradicted claims by Obama's people and Comey that no false information from the Steele dossier had been included in that intelligence community assessment that was found to be false. That statements from the Steele dossier were in fact included in there, but that they were not corroborated, and that the NSA had expressed serious concerns about the ability to corroborate those statements. They were included anyway, and then Comey, came out as head of the FBI numerous times and declared high confidence nonetheless. So that's issue A. Issue B is a statement that he made, and here's what he said about the dossier, Nico, and I wonder if it's something or nothing. Mm-hmm. Quote, "It was significant," meaning the dossier. "It was significant enough and consistent enough with other intelligence that it ought to be included, but it wasn't sufficiently corroborated to be in the body of the ICA or intelligence community assessment. The only problem is that that's false because the statements were included." And that's what that declassified report from Congress in 2020
and he knew
found.
They were included.
Well,
he's
out there saying there's high confidence.
I got it, but look, Comey is a wordsmith. He's very good at parceling and saying this and that. So these people say things a very specific way.
You're right.
And Senator Cruz could have cross-examined him and locked him down a little bit better from that little exchange that I saw. Because he answered one way, at least I watched it one time, and then kind of went in a different way, and it wasn't clear. You know what I'm talking about, George? It wasn't really clear. When you're cross-examining someone, you need to hone them down to your issue, and you signpost where you're going, and then so it's. So I don't know.
I wonder how intent's gonna. I'm curious about the motive here, because this is it's a tangled web that's been weaved here. And I agree, 100%. I think Comey is indeed a very skilled bullshit artist, very skilled. But if you go back to 2016, we're going back as back as 2016. If you remember, Comey had that Steele dossier had come in the possession of the FBI under Comey's leadership, and then they used those contents. That is a matter of record. They used those contents, you might remember, to obtain a warrant to go after what was the guy's name? Carter Page, on the Trump campaign and accusing him of espionage. So where did that come from? Those contents came exclusively from the Steele dossier, those claims, which the FBI then acted on. So you can't have it both ways. You can't say it's significant, but it couldn't really be corroborated enough for it to be actionable and then be acting on the fucking thing, if you'll excuse me. But so my point is, what's he saying and what's he doing? Yeah. Does that matter? I don't know. I'm curious. In a court of law, when does it begin mattering? I guess, when do your actions begin mattering and you stop looking at them as simply being inconsequential or
when they violate a statute? That's when they matter. Your actions don't matter unless they violate a statute in a court of law.
Is that a little too much clarity for you guys that are listening?
I mean, that's just a fact. I mean, but the whole look. I think one thing that I wish Trump wouldn't have done. Well, I shouldn't say wish would have done. I'm making an analysis.
What you're gonna say
was that post. Yeah, it's true. That post. He just. Because then you're making you're making a stronger argument for malicious prosecution. Yeah. You know what I mean? And then he took the post down, or he questioned it, or tweaked it, and then put it back up. I understand. I don't follow anybody on that stuff. But so that's. I'm just thinking objectively, that's going to be used against him, against the prosecution, the government for sure. But then on the left, all the people that are bitching about political prosecutions. I mean, I didn't hear you bitch when Mike Flynn was prosecuted, or when Steve Bannon, or Peter Navarro, or Roger Stone.
And stop with the
Donald
unprecedented.
Trump.
Of course, this is precedented.
I mean, no kidding. This is ridiculous. But the same thing with Gavin Newsom about people in masks and picking up brown and black people. That's just not happening. These are people that are lying. Look, if you're going to argue your side, you got to come to the table with truth. That's the problem that I push back on these people. Don't skew the truth to your way. Let's just argue the facts. This is why I love our justice system, because it's an arena where you bring evidence. You have both people advocating passionately. You have a referee, and that's why the referees matter, and my judicial positions are important. And I wish they were nonpartisan. And people get so caught up on Republican, Democrat when it comes to judges, at least local, county, and felony judges. And it doesn't matter, because there's great Democrat judges, and there used to be great Republican judges. There's none anymore. But so you just gotta, all that to say.
And it's okay for Department of Justice, and it's been happening forever, even well pre-Trump, for Department of Justice to go after an individual for wrongdoing, and that individual may happen to be a political opponent, but it's not okay for them to go out because they're political opponents. That's the issue.
That's right.
That's the dividing line. They may happen to be, but don't do it because they are.
Yeah, I'm just curious. It sounds like more's coming, and I'm okay with more coming if it's objectively substantiated.
And you're okay with retribution.
Yeah, not revenge. There's a difference.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. Retribution just means accountability.
Exactly right.
We bastardize that word. Retribution doesn't mean revenge.
Or vindictiveness.
But how is anything going to not look like revenge?
Sure. In this polarized culture.
But how can anything that Trump what he does moving forward, how can it be complained about by the left? They've taken off all the parameters. You've gone after a political opponent, and you've gone after a president, and you justified it by saying no one's above the law. All right, well then no one's above the law. Quit bitching. I don't.
They also had the Epstein file in their hand
for 4 years.
For 4 years. And now they want it. But they had it.
Well, they don't care about it. They
of
just
course
care about
they
making
don't.
it. And look, there's a reason. Look, I want it too. We all should want it. But there's some questions that need to be answered on the DOJ currently. But just don't act like the DOJ under Biden didn't have it this whole time, and all you guys were crickets. So I'm just in the business of calling out bullshit the best I can with an imperfect person that I am. But I try to ground it in at least some objective analysis. And so, yeah, it's an interesting dynamic, but you're really seeing people's ideology exposed.
I just thought of something. I said a minute ago, how can anybody think that it's not revenge because, Trump is stepping forward because it was done to him? But then I thought about the auto pen picture that he just put in this long hallway that how Trump is building this long walkway to go to the Rose Garden. He put pictures of all of the presidents, And then in Biden's picture, he just put a picture of the auto pen.
Yeah, I'm not crazy about
So
that.
that isn't what I'm talking about. That's why people think he's out for revenge, because he does things like that. It's
Look,
funny.
It's funny,
but
and it's appropriate, to be honest with you, but it's not appropriate in the White House, in my opinion. Just
if
Biden
he's
was
paying
there,
for it, though,
put
yeah.
Biden's picture up, and then do another, maybe put an auto
He
pen
can't.
underneath him. I know.
He can't.
Well, this is the good and bad about it, but
Yeah.
again, it's that same personality that only he could have sustained the attacks that he went under. Only him.
You're right.
Nobody else.
You're
Not
right.
Vance, not Rubin. And I shouldn't say that until they're in it, but I don't think. But that personality trait, good and bad, it's good at some points and it sucks at others. That's what kept him going, I guess. I mean, because it's amazing to me in that sense. But it's also frustrating at times, and this is one of those times. But it is what it is. But I don't know if you want. What do you want to go to next? You want to talk
don't
about?
know.
Well, I mean, look, everyone's talking about the Charlie Kirk
Yes,
investigation.
please. Yes.
Look, the state government, the state officials, the state district attorney's office is responsible for prosecuting that case. They're the one that charged them with that. Remember, malicious murder, and it's equivalent to our capital murder. It's not a federal charge; it's a state charge. And under Utah law, he's subject to the firing squad. I mean, death penalty. It's either through injection or through the firing squad. There's a lot of things that don't add up. As typical, as I've told everyone, pause. Let's wait to get evidence. Right away, the guy in the white hat was giving some complex,
Hand moves,
unknown, very overt, sniper hand gestures and all this other bullshit. And then it ended up being Frank Turk. But people were sure that it was him. And then you have this angle. And my concern is people have jumped the gun. I have a lot of questions. I'm not convinced that kid is the shooter. I'm not. I mean, at all. I'm not convinced at all. I'm not saying he's not. I'm not convinced.
I'm not either.
People are acting like that this thing is done. We got him. No, you didn't get shit, mother. I mean, you didn't get anything. And then there's a side shooter and this shooter and then the lapel. I saw some video this week that was odd. And I always thought that I was very curious about Charlie's shirt, the way his shirt responded. I've never seen, and I've seen a lot of shooting videos, of real shooting videos, not demonstrations. I've never seen a shirt act that way from a far shot.
I only watched it once. I was sorry I did. But what happened to the shirt? I don't know.
It appears like there's some type of pressure from inside that air exposed. I say pressure, but I'm just going to say pressure for now. But yes, I could see get air from the inside, from the back and the front. It was weird. It makes you think, okay, was that an exit wound, entrance wound? When you're looking at a case like this and you're trying to tie an accusation to a suspect and a murder, you're going to, and I said this from day one, you're going to do wound path analysis. You're going to do tool and firearms analysis. And that's to matching up a bullet. And they claim to have the bullet. Someone correct me if I'm wrong. Again, I don't know what's true or not true, what's being reported.
Yeah, that's been
I can
reported.
only make an assessment. It has been reported.
That there was no exit wound. Go ahead.
Okay, so then there's a bullet, and it was a miracle bullet, right? It's Charlie's body stopped a miracle bullet because a 30-06, I've hunted since I was younger, and I shoot with a 273, but a 30-06 is equivalent. That thing goes through deer, mule deer. I mean, a 30-06 will go through a neck. Easy. I mean, at 200 yards is not a far shot with a 30-06. I'm not saying anybody can make that. It's just not, oh my God, you need some special sniper. You don't need a special sniper. Anyone that's shot. But now the pressure and all the stress and the circumstance, yes, different topic, whether he can sustain that or not. But then so I was like, okay, that's odd. But could it happen? I guess. I mean, it sounds like these doctors are talking about a miracle that this bullet was stopped. Well, then when you have a bullet, you can do a tool and firearms analysis. And what that's doing is you're looking at the striations in the shell. If you look at a shell, it's smooth. But when it leaves the barrel of a gun, it leaves striations. I mean, it's a simple way of explaining it. It leaves a fingerprint that you can tie back to a barrel. There's lands, they call it lands and grooves that are created on a shell when you're doing this, and you're trying to match it back to a barrel. That bullet, the shell, through lands and grooves and striations and analysis, can go back to this barrel.
So that bullet came from that gun.
barrel, yes.
So if they shoot another bullet from that same gun, it'll have the same
Yes, and they're doing, yes, you have fingerprints. I mean, you're gonna tie it back.
It should be reproducible.
It should be.
Yeah.
And but the wound path analysis matters. So what you do is you look at us as a deceased. You look at the victim, and then you look at where you're claiming this came from, and there should be a trajectory, and there's going to be and then so where and they can recreate because we have videos. You have a lot of videos, and you know where this person was sitting, and then you have this trajectory of where they're claiming that this assassin was from. Well, then you're going to have an entry wound, and there's going to be a path. Now, Could a bullet hit bone and stuff and then fracture and ricochet? Absolutely, of course. But you should still see a trajectory. I've done a lot of this, and we've seen a lot of these cases where the bullet enters and the entry wound typically is smaller than the exit wound, typically. There's a blowout in the back, a blowback. And then so you're going to see that. So when you look at these lapel videos that are going around, that look, it's intriguing. I mean, it gets my attention. And then, and to me, it's an easy fix because if this lapel had some projectile come out of it, which that opens up a whole nother can of worms. Who's behind that? They're claiming Turning Point's part of it, and that this person's part of it, and this guy in the front row detonated it, and the timing's kind of eerie. But first of all, there was a guy over here that for sure shot, and then there was one of his bodyguards that shot under his armpit, which was it went crazy. But this one is going to, because if that lapel had a trajectory, you're going to have what we call stippling. If it's close enough, if the barrel's close enough, you're going to have what we call soot marks because it burns the skin.
Right.
You're going to burn, or it's going to leave stippling from the projectile. So, if there's an entry wound here and an apparent exit wound here, there's your wound path analysis. It definitely can be this dude up here.
Wait, I'm just trying to understand. You're suggesting that the lapel could have been a weapon itself.
I'm not suggesting it. No, I'm not.
I've heard that and
I'm
the
saying
microphone.
Could. I'm not saying that it
I'm
was.
saying
But
somebody has made that claim.
Okay. Yeah.
I think we sent you I think Saulo sent you the video, or somebody did. In our group, we've sent that video around. But there's a hypothesis that this could be a projectile in this.
I mean, the
lapel.
feasibility of something that advanced, I don't know. It seems to me curious. I mean, now we're getting into James Bond territory.
Well, we're
here.
getting into pagers that have exploded too, right?
Well, okay.
Oh,
All
I'm
right.
just saying.
Is that where we're going to go here?
No,
But it
Okay.
is
No, it's
a
not the way
great
to go.
example.
No, hold on.
A great example.
But you blow that off. I mean,
No,
did
no,
pagers,
I'm not blowing it
hold
off.
on, but
I'm
my
not
opinion.
Okay.
I'm asking questions.
That's fine.
And I'm not going to cut off any answers. Did pagers explode on a bunch of people? They
Okay.
did.
Circumstances
Yes.
don't matter.
Did it? Hold on.
Yeah, of course they do, brother.
All I'm saying is technology. That's pretty crazy that pagers killed people. And they were detonated from a different place. That's all I'm saying. I'm not that guy. I have no idea how that works. That's your area. I'm just saying.
It's projectile physics. I do understand
Okay,
that.
good.
But I
Okay.
think it's bizarre. I'm not challenging. I'm genuinely, this is how I'm curious. I mean, I'm curious about what type of device. I mean, you're
I have
talking
no
about.
idea.
I'm wondering if you had some, because I want to learn.
But here's
to
my,
me, it's
can I ask
interesting.
you what I would do, and if you and I are in the room and you're
Yeah.
my expert, I'm saying, okay, where's that lapel piece? Because then there's other people
Oh,
making
yeah.
claims.
Yeah, absolutely.
There's people
Yeah.
making claims
Yeah.
that these guys jumped over and then somebody reached down, one of them grabbed it and handed it off to somebody.
Yeah.
Who knows what that's happening? I got it. Okay. We can explore because we know who those dudes are. Interview them. Get it. Check their background. Ask questions. Where's the lapel? Those lapel mics. Now they can be blown off because that's his chain blowing off his neck. I mean, it can happen.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah.
But I want to know where that lapel mic is. That's a big deal. I mean, to me, it is. I want to know. Now, these videos up here, supposedly, Turning Point said has been turned over to the FBI. So all these people claiming, why aren't they turning to Candace? Why aren't you turning over these videos? Well, allegedly, they've been turned over. They got the SIM cards and they turned them over. Well, then now you're turning them over to the FBI. Who do you want to turn them over to, Candace? I mean, can you let the investigation go on?
Yeah,
Unless,
just
at
pause and
some
breathe.
point,
Yeah.
at some point, we got to work within our system. And if you want to burn down the whole system, Candace, then or maybe we make Candace in charge of everything. I mean, just slow down. And I'm not anti-Candace. I'm just going to call her bullshit out too. I mean, I agree with some of the stuff she says. She has legitimate concerns. She has legitimate questions. But can we just pause and we got to work with what we're dealing with here. There's questions you can ask. There's answers you can demand, and there should be answers to this. This is not a mystery. This is not the Zapruder film. This is not 1963. This is not back then where we have a lot of tech, and we have a shit ton of video.
And
on
we
this
do have
thing.
video, and from multiple angles.
And high tech.
Yeah.
I mean, TP.
But the
they
poor,
have
the
video
poor
from
bastard who was trying to take the camera down, he was
But
probably doing that under
don't
instruction.
You
He's
even think
not-
that was a little odd? I mean, somebody, your friend, your coworker, your Christian brother is just murdered, and your first reaction is to go grab the camera. I don't know. I guess I would not even think of that.
Well,
I would
I mean,
not in that moment.
I see it a little bit the opposite because you're very concerned about corruption of evidence, and it matters. This stuff matters, to Nico's point. And so if you have multiple video sources, you definitely want to make sure you grab them and you don't corrupt them in any way. So, I mean, that kind of makes sense to me. I don't know. That was a TPSA guy, right? Who was doing that.
From what has been reported, yes.
From what we've seen in
he
reports.
wasn't like he
Look,
handed.
I love your analysis because I know where it's coming from.
I
mean,
the
you're
truth.
But you're not talking. I mean, you get paid for asking good questions. important questions that speak to people whether they're going to end up in jail or not. So I listened.
But
I listen when you
prosecuted
ask
before.
questions. I'm genuinely interested in the tech. That's why I was probing. I was like, "Are you suggesting?" Maybe I worded it wrong.
I wasn't. Somebody else is.
I'm interested in the tech because I think
Yeah.
that's to me that's fascinating to me. But think about the amount of organization, the amount of investment, coordination that would have to go into something like
Yes,
that. That's all.
that was my pushback
Fair-
too.
fair
and
enough.
then think about this though, and then think if there is a quote unquote cover up. Now you're bringing in the Utah governor, the Utah DA's
Stole my
office,
thunder, but-
the Utah. I mean, think about what you're. All I'm saying is, look, everything should be explored. But then you think about what the ramifications of what you're claiming, and if the evidence says it, then fine. But holy shit! I mean, you're talking about everybody involved in this deal, I guess. But
And-
just back it up with this thing called evidence.
And
That's all I
even
care about.
Candace's proposition that somebody might have been under the podium and shot Charlie from under him.
I heard that.
It's a thing. So I mean, I guess anything.
Look, here's my deal.
in the pursuit of the
I don't
truth.
know why we
But
didn't
don't
see.
pitch it as the truth.
I
That's
don't
the
know
point.
why we didn't eventually see yellow tape around there. That bothers me.
That it was so true.
That bothers me because every murder
So
scene has
true.
yellow tape, meaning don't touch this. I don't know why. I've seen video. I don't know what the timing is and if this is accurate. Why they were doing something to fill up or do some type of cement. Redoing the. Why do you do it now? I don't know. I want to know who was that already planned, and why would you say? Why don't you say, hey,
Don't
local
touch
DA's
anything.
office, local FBI or federal agents, local law enforcement. Are we done? Can we had this thing planned for 2 months, and we were going to redo this surface anyway. Can we move? Yeah, you got the clear. Maybe that happened. I don't know. But see, I'm asking those questions. It's not a conspiracy. It's just a question I have. I want to know why. I want to know a lot of things. But
No, this really is important. I want to just pause there for a moment. If Tyler Robinson is in fact the guy, not obviously leans in that direction, you're not convinced. It's not over till the fat lady sings. Can you still say that, Karen?
Yes, you can. Go ahead.
All right. So,
It's legal.
so if Tyler Robinson is in fact legitimately the murderer here, the stuff that you're talking about, a good defense attorney will call that out, right? We'll call that out and say, you've got a contaminated crime scene. You've got, I mean, really? What proper analysis were you people able to do here?
We're not going to run away from this. A good
It's a
defense
big deal.
lawyer is going to look at wound path analysis.
Yeah.
Look, I heard people making the claim. I don't know. There's different reports that there was no autopsy done. And then I looked it up and said there was an autopsy done.
Yeah.
Which one is it? Let me just make a general statement. If there was no autopsy done, that's ridiculous. In Texas, there's always an autopsy done when someone dies unnaturally. And if you're outside of a hospital or some type of nursing home, there's always an autopsy done, even on accidents. That's a statute. I have heard that Utah has a similar statute. So that's an easy
They
one
do.
to fix. Okay,
They
there
do.
you go.
They
Okay,
do.
there you go.
Yeah.
I didn't know that.
Because
Thank you
we
for
were
that.
texting about this
I don't remember that. Sorry.
yesterday. Because you had made that same statement. This is outrageous if there's no autopsy.
If there, and I always pay if or this because I don't know yet. I'm like you said. This is my profession. I ask
Yeah.
questions, but I've worked these cases up and prosecuted them, and I've defended them, and that's why it matters to me. And so the crime scene matters, chain of custody matters. Where I have questions. I mean, and anyone that has a theory that makes you go, huh? And if you look at that body, you're going to look at the body, and you're going to look for what they call defects. And you're going to have a defect in the body, entry wounds, exit wounds, damage in the body. What was injured? What did the path? If we have that bullet, if we have that shell, oh crap! I mean,
Yeah,
that's
that's
huge.
all
And
the
then
answers.
we're going to see an entry wound from here. I want to know where the entrance wound is. This is to me an apparent exit wound. I mean, it hits his artery, he's out. So now where was the entrance wound? So if the entrance wound is down up, well then it wasn't this kid up there.
No,
That's all I'm saying.
No, it was not.
Now this kid needs to go. Now did he conspire to do it? I don't know. I mean, everyone made claim that his text messages to his boyfriend
They were bizarre.
odd.
They were.
But let me tell you what else is bizarre. What's also bizarre is when you have someone who is a lifelong quote unquote criminal involved in criminal activity. And when lawyers give advice, hey, don't talk on a jail phone because it's being recorded. Oh, I know. And then they talk on a jail phone and they just rat themselves out. I mean, many cases have been.
That is so dumb.
Go to the jail calls. That's stupid. Or is it? Are you a police officer? No, I'm not. Okay. Just checking. Who the
That's
hell
in the
believes that?
movies.
Who believes that shit? But nobody. I've never seen a detective go like, I actually am a police officer. Oh, you still want to do the deal? No, of course no one's going to say they're a police officer. So I've seen stupidity in a high dosage in the justice system. So could that kid been that stupid to just rat himself out and give him this perfect alibi? I guess. But then you have to ask yourself, if this kid knows he's not the shooter, because we're getting into conspiracy theory, right, land, then why would he take the death penalty for this? So he just wants to die?
Yeah.
And then, because they're going to pay him a bunch of money. You have proof that he's paid him money, and he can't enjoy the money because he's going to be dead.
Right, exactly.
I'm going to say, let's pause on all of it. All of it, bring it in. Let's analyze it. We have evidence. And there should be other evidence. And them not releasing it doesn't bother me one bit. Sorry, Candace. When I was DA, I didn't release shit.
The Utah statute does make it mandatory for all homicides in Utah. But as I mentioned yesterday, while we were texting about this, because remember how all this started. Somebody sent a clip from Instagram where you get the best news all the time. So it was a clip from Instagram that it was a guy that was saying that he queried Grok, and Grok had said that there was no autopsy done in the aftermath of murder. And then Utah statute mandates it for all homicides, but that the report, is that typically here in Texas? How long before the report is actually generated?
That depends on the ME's office.
Because it could take weeks.
But it shouldn't be released.
But it shouldn't be released to the public.
I wouldn't.
Yeah.
I wouldn't release anything.
Yeah.
I mean, I wouldn't release whatever is in the DA's control. I wouldn't release any of it. I wouldn't if I was DA.
So this is normal. It's normal for us to be in a period of ambiguity right now while things are
You're
being
supposed to be
determined.
tried in the court of law, not in a court of public opinion. And if you're going to release it, here's what I used to tell people. I used to go to DA conferences and, but what about the public? And they're going to get so mad at you. Well, then don't run for office if you can't take the heat.
But you started this conversation saying that you're concerned that you haven't heard much on the Kirk investigation.
But give updates. Because Patel, he's an interesting dude. But then
See you in Valhalla.
Well, yeah, don't get me started. But I mean, but and by the way, there were some corrections to both of us, George. It seemed like the Valhalla is a reference to, it's a law enforcement in reference to see you in heaven. I've never heard that before, and I've been around a lot of law enforcement.
That's not a refutation of what we said. We're being of course it's heaven, but it's a heaven for warriors. Look, this is irrefutable. You could look it up. I mean, give me a break.
Okay, I'm just saying.
It's a heaven for warriors if you're a Norse warrior.
Right.
Last time I checked,
Not
he's
Christian
Hindu.
heaven.
I don't think Hindu and Norse people were. But go ahead, please.
Yeah, okay.
Not Christian heaven.
I don't know what the hell I was saying.
Not.
Oh, but Patel goes up there and says, now we're investigating multiple shooters or something like that. He reported something. He said something. All I'm saying is, it just bothers me when things go silent and no updates at all. I mean, we still don't know shit about the Butler shooter.
I know.
But there's no one to blame but Trump on this one. It's his administration. Why is he releasing
the updates can connect? Like, remember, that's our criticism of, he announced that, they found the killer, that's not the killer. And then now we have a killer. So everybody's wondering, is this the real killer?
And then that guy Zinn, that dude's
George
weird.
Zinn.
Why did he immediately when Kirk got shot, he jumps up, I did it, shoot me. What? And this guy was at 9. That dude's a weird dude.
He is weird.
And then
He's
they
a
checked his phone because they thought he was a suspect. They found child porn.
And he's been arrested multiple times throughout his life. He's kind of a wingnut.
I mean, was he just there hoping that Charlie Kirk would be assassinated and I'll be ready to jump up and just? I don't know, man. Look, all of it makes you go,
sick.
Yeah. And we should look into all of it. All of it should be looked into.
Yeah.
If you're going to do a good investigation, you take all tips. You don't just start disclaiming. This is what irritates me about people. Oh, please, that's ridiculous. Says who? I mean, how many things were ridiculous and then they played out to be true?
Yep.
Everything starts off as ridiculous. I mean, this whole world is ridiculous. So I just think I'm the type of guy, when I would prosecute and when I'm defending, I want every theory, as ridiculous as it is. And I tell clients all the time, I don't care how crazy the defense is, as long as we can back it up with evidence. Because it'll play out in a court of law.
How many degrees of freedom should you have for your what if games? I mean, should it be like outlandish? Like, at what point do you like asking questions?
Well, if you walk up to me and say, "What if UFOs murdered Charlie Kirk?" I would say, "Okay, well, let's put that on the super back burner." There's my standard. I mean,
we've seen drones do some pretty impressive things here over the last year. But.
Well, I mean, that's not a UFO. That's a drone. But to me, all I'm saying is, I get your point. I mean, there's some things that are like, okay, whatever, but these are things, everything that we're talking about need to be explored and put to bed.
Because in your view, they're within the realms of possibility.
Well, in a court of law, does it raise reasonable doubt?
Reasonable doubt. That's what it is.
So that's a reasonable doubt. There's that word reason, and doubt is not certainty. So reasonable doubt. So the state has to prove their case beyond a reasonable doubt. They have to eliminate all reasonable doubt from your mind.
We haven't actually seen the sort of unadulterated exit wound, if you will, and all we saw was Charlie is shot on his left side. That's what it appears to be.
No, I don't think he's exit on the left side. Looks like to me. There's a wound on his left side.
When you said
exit on the left,
this is what threw me off. I wanted to go back to clarify, give my own clarity here. So an exit wound should be larger
Than the
entry
entry
wound. Okay, that didn't seem to me a particularly large entry wound. It just seemed very bloody, but it
That's
seemed,
a.
I mean, it
well,
just seemed very bloody. The blood kind of obscured really sort of the.
If you look when you look at a dead body, they're not all torn up to hell. They're just not. Depends on handguns, depending on the projectile, how far, how long, how strong,
right?
The grain, all that stuff, whether it's hollow point or whatever it is. So that's not that looks like an exit wound to me, and I think most experts will say.
But
that.
wouldn't you expect the tissue around it to be visibly altered as a result of that exit wound? Like on Kennedy, for instance, that.
Brother, yeah.
I mean, that was crazy to me. You could literally see
his brain.
Yes, and you can see parts of his skull. I mean, so that's why one would conclude
the argument is there was a high-powered rifle from a closer range as you're coming into it. So you're driving into that versus being stationary.
Right. To me, that looked like an exit wound. In this particular case, unless I'm not looking at the right videos, and I know Salo has all of them, I'd like to understand why you would think that.
But then if you think this is an entry wound, then the shot came from the left. Because if you look at where Charlie was sitting, and you look at where the stadium was, the stadium seating, and you look at the roof, it's really at a right angle. Then you're really throwing the wrench into people's minds right now. Okay, that means the shooting was from the left.
Well, I thought that the original placement of the at least from aerial schematics, it looked like it was a little bit to his left.
No,
like left front. But you're saying that's not the case.
That's not what I've seen. I've seen the drone that I've seen. It's actually a little bit to his right. Someone correct me if I'm wrong. But where he was sitting, for where the angle of the roof. But see, this is where we're all.
This is significant.
Everybody's playing investigator and expert, and that's why there's evidence, and there's the gathering of evidence. There's drones. We have wound path. We have trajectory. We know what a 30-06 can do at 200 feet or whatever it is, 200 yards. I mean, and then we know people know where Charlie was sitting. So it's not like we're speculating. He was walking down the street, and this is where we think he was. We have to recreate where he was at. We know exactly where he was sitting, and that's why. Yep. That's why at some point, I'm not saying immediately. Yellow tape doesn't automatically appear. Law enforcement makes the scene when somebody calls a murder in or a shooting. They get it. They determine it's a murder, and now this is it's an investigation, and this is a crime scene, and then they court it off. So that's not going to happen in the first second. So people taking hats and people getting cameras down, I got that. But law enforcement was called. When they made it to the scene, they should have corded this off. I don't remember seeing video of ever this being corded off.
They never evacuated it. No, people ran, but they didn't evacuate. Yeah.
Well, they can stand in the other part, but where the shooting happened, they shouldn't have stood there. I would have gotten people out of it completely.
Kash Patel shouldn't be the guy giving regular updates here. This should be coming from the state law enforcement, right? Why is Kash Patel giving up?
Brother, come on.
Would you rely on? I'm just saying, who would you expect to be giving regular updates? How often? What would comprise a decent update? What sort of details can they go into?
If I was the DA, I would say, Director Patel, you do what you want to do, but make no mistake about it. I'm running this investigation. I'm prosecuting this case. Let's work together. But you want to be on TV, be on TV. I'm going to give updates at the appropriate time. And right now we're in the information gathering mode. And I think to save potential egg on anyone's face, let's pause and let's not give too many updates too soon. Let's wait because he's already changed the story, I think, once or twice. Did he? I'm not sure. But when I was DA, I didn't want to have to change my story. I was very careful with my words, not scared, careful, only because I wanted to be accurate, not because I was worried about me. I'm not politically correct. It's not that. I want to be accurate, and then I'd give updates in due time. And then at the right time, you say, look, we have the investigation. We feel good about it. And you'll see all the evidence in trial, not in the court of public opinion, in a court of law. I believe in due process. But there's that word again. And even the accused that I was prosecuting, I want them to have due process. And it happens in there. I'm not going to taint a jury pool by any more than it needs to be.
This is way too important to screw up.
No, it's ridiculous.
Way too important to screw up.
All I'm saying is, to me, there's answers. We should easily fight, or we should easily dispel things. But that kid has not made any admissions. I'm curious how that played out. I mean, the dad, what was he walking in and turning himself in for? So I have that question if I'm a prosecutor. So what? I'm not turning myself in, Pop. I didn't do anything wrong. I mean, but he allowed his dad to help him turn himself in for what? So that's an admission in yourself. You're turning yourself in for something. You have this discord. I heard that the boyfriend, furry dude, is gone. If I'm in law enforcement, I want to know exactly where that dude is. Don't ever leave. Now, he's not under some court order, but you want to stay in contact with us. Who's your first, second points of contact? Where are you going if you leave, please?
As a potential accomplice. I mean, because it was pitched that it was a network of people. Remember on the Discord website?
Yeah.
So who else? What else? Who else is in this network? But I mean, the evidence apparently seemed to point to him. the shell casings,
On day
the
one.
weapon,
On
right?
day
On
one.
day one, right?
Yeah, but then there's people that said there's a shooter up there on the left, and then you look at the video, and it does look like a shot. And then you look at a drone picture of it, and that's a bush.
Yeah.
But then there was a flash, and there was this, and the entrance came here, and then. But I still have an angle that this exit wound apparently, it was still a downward angle. Again, wound path analysis will help us. That's what people you're seeing are trying to do on the internet, on the YouTube, and 5 million views here, and there's some good analysis, but we just don't have all the information the DA's office has right now, and the investigation's still going on. But I believe at this point, we would have some strong direction. You could know whether a bullet came from a 30-06 at 200 yards.
But we just don't know right now if there's a central coordination office, to kind of weed out what's crap and what's true. That's the problem right now. There's a ton of narratives. So
I don't know, guys. Let's see what happens. What else? Anything else? Comments?
Nothing.
Concerns?
No, everybody's talking about it. The same thing, like nobody knows. But one comment a zillion years ago is they don't even believe or understand how the guy walked with a rifle in his, like in his pants all the way down his leg. They're like, wait a second.
Okay, well, here's my deal. I have a question. My question. Why we have video of him walking
Right.
out. We should have, if those cameras have been on the whole time, there should be video of him getting up there at some point. I mean, unless he came up another way and maybe there's an entrance from the roof.
We saw him jump off.
How did he get on there? I'm just
Right.
curious how he got on there. And I'm not, look, yes, I understand. I mean, you can't take a 30-06 that weapon apart easily, but you can take it if you have a screwdriver. Supposedly there's DNA on the screwdriver and on the gun. Matters. We didn't get the kid early enough to where there'd be a GSR on his hands from any gunshot residue because he was already gone, and they picked him up days later. But then when he's going down, that's a grainy, crappy. It looks like there's a stiff object that he's coming down with. Could that have been the rifle? Sure. I mean, it's hard to say if you don't have high resolution. Right. There's questions, and look, you need to put all this together. Whether he's being charged with capital murder equivalent, not conspiracy to commit capital murder. It's a different charge.
Yeah.
So, I don't know, man. There's a lot for a defense to work with, in my opinion, and I hope that they come to these answers because it's a big deal. It should be, because if there's other people involved, they need to be held accountable.
Yeah.
Or whoever it is. I don't care who it is. But anything else? Solid comments? No, we're good. We're gonna. All right, guys. Thanks for sharing your Saturday morning with us. We really appreciate it. I don't know if we say that enough. And to everybody, even people that disagree, I'm going to keep encouraging respectful discourse and passionate debate. But I don't know, man. I'm just not into the name calling. I can call names as good as anyone else. But let's fight with facts and data and evidence. Keep an open mind. Let me give some humble advice. Always go into a discussion or a debate or a conversation with the idea that you may be wrong and could be corrected. I do. I'm open-minded to that, to certain things. I'm not going to be corrected on who I think Jesus Christ is, but I mean, on other stuff like that, we should all be humble ourselves and be passionate and all that stuff. But I'm concerned about the future of this country. I really am. And I think we're seeing a divide that it's being exposed, and we're seeing it just from how we look at the same set of facts, where we stand, what our moral compass is. I didn't even talk about Don Lemon and what I think about that fool and what he thought about the memorial service. But I do hope that there's truly a revival, Salo, or whoever, Karen, whoever, that it's a true revival, a revival that we acknowledge that the way that the world is doing things sucks and that there's a better way to do it. And maybe, just maybe there's a transcendent being outside of time, space, and matter that gives us our rules of engagement for this thing called life, in disagreement and in agreement. Because I believe in loving your neighbor, and that means telling the truth, correcting when you need to, standing strong for things, fighting when it's appropriate, of course, I mean, physically and politically. I mean, obviously, you have a right not to be a victim, but really trying to work in peace with each other and in harmony, because what I don't want is for a country that hates us, that is looking at us implode from the inside and thinking, we don't have to fire a weapon yet. Let them eat themselves up first, and then we'll get them when they're weak. I worry about that. I worry about that. So I don't know. I'm going to pray and keep on advocating and educate myself and be open and try to bring people to the saving knowledge of Jesus Christ. That's my deal. All right, guys. God bless you. Have a wonderful weekend. Bye-bye. Oh, wait a minute. My daughter's birthday's tomorrow.
Yes.
She's not watching. But I want someone to tell her your pod mention you. Happy birthday, Maya. God bless you. 17. Love you. Bye-bye.